Hello, I'm Bob Saenz, writer of Extracurricular Activities and Church People. Welcome to Page to Screen.
Hi, I'm Michael Bentley, and welcome to Page to Screen, where we explore the art and craft of screenwriting. Joining us tonight on the show are screenwriter Bob Saenz, who's written dozens of TV and film scripts that have made their way onto the screen. Also with us is Cat Stewart. Cat's worked for years developing projects and as a studio reader. She's currently managing two big projects for the Nashville Film Festival. Bob and Cat, thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having
Pleasure.
us.
The topic tonight is the logline, the bane of every screenwriter's existence. And to prove the point, we've gotten our hands on some loglines sent in by local writers who are trying to break into the business. They've agreed to set aside their egos and take their medicine. So let's jump in and take a look. After being pushed around for the last time, a middle-aged junior advertising executive builds a monster truck. He takes his revenge on traffic, his ex, her new
Beau.
beau. I'm sorry.
Boyfriend.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so you didn't know that
It's
word.
boo nowadays.
yeah,
but,
people say boo now. so that's
But
what it
again,
was.
that goes back to my thing, use the word boyfriend rather than beau.
Right.
Because there's going to be young people that read this and they have a clue what that word is.
Hey, boo, I feel like I can fill in the blank there, but her new beau, his boss, everyone.
Interesting premise.
Yeah. And a middle-aged junior advertising executive is even more interesting.
Do we want to watch somebody building a monster truck?
And I mean,
that's-
we want to watch people run over, but, you know, Death Race 2000.
But again, the first line is he builds a monster truck, and they're
Yeah.
thinking, is this a movie about building a monster truck? Which is not that interesting. So uses his monster, steals a monster truck, does something with a monster truck, but again, it's you're thinking about the executive or producer or reader or development person who is reading this and thinking, everything is literal when it comes to these things. So if you say a middle-aged guy builds a monster truck, what you're telling the person who's reading your logline is we're going to show on the screen a guy building a monster truck.
And I feel like that they're trying to make me like this guy. He's
Yeah.
going to run over people with that truck. What else can he do with it?
Yeah. Right.
Because he was pushed around.
I think it's more important that we hear about his grievances and the fact that he uses his monster truck to take his revenge on the people that wronged him.
Yeah.
Yeah,
for
you
sure.
don't have to name who the people are.
Yeah.
In loglines, your word choice is incredibly important.
All right, we have a mystery comedy. When a low-level employee at a struggling meal subscription company accidentally hits and runs over her new boss, she must mash up some courage and drain her morals to avoid getting caught and also win her office recipe competition.
Oh, I got to bow out of this one because I've given notes on that script.
Oh.
So
Recuse yourself from
I
it.
have to recuse myself because I know what the story's about, so I'll have to just.
All right, Bob, what do you think?
I don't know what the story's about. I'm going to guess that she cuts him up and uses him in the food.
That's what I think, too.
Okay, but then they should say that.
Yeah.
Okay, talking around it doesn't, it's very clever, but again, you're looking for people who want to know exactly what the script is. They don't want clever and is, believe it or not, clever doesn't work in loglines.
Okay, interesting, because I really like the use of mash up and drain, because that's visceral. It's like, you get that she's turning her
But
boss.
it's prose.
Right.
Okay.
I can see that. You need to spell things out.
Yeah, you do, because they have a certain amount of time to read them and decide if they want to read it. Okay, so if they read it correctly, a woman runs over her boss and puts him in the food, and then has to win her office recipe competition, which she's going to win with her boss stew or whatever it is. Okay, that's Act 1. What happens to her? Who comes after her? Where's the boss? Where are the cops? Where's where's the stuff that she has to overcome?
Yeah, that makes sense. And then, like, why is the office recipe competition so important? That kind of thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
How close was I?
It may be different than the draft I read.
Okay. Well, I don't know. I can't tell by.
Yeah, right. I don't know.
When hot-headed sharpshooter Charles Dickinson insults Andrew Jackson's wife, a fierce rivalry ignites, leading the future president to a high-stakes duel.
Well, in a case like this, you do need to use the names because it's probably a true thing. You should say that it's based on a true story, if it is.
Yeah, I believe that is a true story, as best I recall.
Yeah, you should put that in there.
Yeah, I could be happy with just the true story of the Charles Dickinson Andrew Jackson
Yeah.
duel.
Is
'Cause
that enough of a log line?
Yeah, if it's a true story, it is, because if I'm looking for something in that
And then what
vein,
happened?
yeah.
Is the duel the end of the movie, or is the duel in the middle, and then all the stuff on? And so you have to say what happens from the duel. What's the? We obviously know that Andrew doesn't lose it because he ended up being president. But what are the stakes? What happens afterwards? Unless the duel is the end of the movie.
Okay.
Yeah, true stories are different. You know, you can just say.
Now, let's say this isn't a true story. Is there a way to kind of spell that out as well? Because I'm not sure if that is a true story. It might be, but
I don't remember what caused them to get into the duel.
That's
but-
so it is definitely a
Okay,
true
so
story.
here's
pretty
how you
sure,
get
yeah.
around. Here's how you get around that.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yep.
words matter. Instead of saying based on a true story, you say inspired by a true story, and then you can write anything you want.
Yeah, which is usually more interesting.
So when you see a script that says inspired by a true story, that means it's mostly all made up.
Yeah.
If you see a movie that's based on a true story, a lot of it is real.
Still made up.
I was gonna say, yeah, I've heard most based on a true story is still made
There's
up.
stuff in it that's made
Yeah.
up, obviously.
Yeah.
But it has more of a
It's
basis
massaged.
than truth in it.
Right.
If it's based on a true story. If it's inspired by a true story, it's all not true.
Yeah.
It's like
Cocaine Bear.
It's like Fargo.
Oh.
It says inspired by a true story.
Yeah, but it
Right.
wasn't.
But
yeah,
it wasn't
all
at
of
all.
It,
They
there wasn't
made
even
the
a
whole
shred
thing
of
up.
it.
Yeah.
Right.
All right, we got a dramedy. After her father is left brain dead following a stroke, a feisty young woman embarks on a cross-country journey with friends to locate her wayward mother, who has power of attorney so she can remove him from life support.
Okay, well, why does she want him removed from life support? It's personal, but, and then again, it seems like it doesn't make sense, because if the person that's his power of attorney is not around, being next of kin, she could do that. So it's kind of a logic issue right away.
Yeah, and I'm not sure I would put comedy on there
Yeah.
because the first line of a comedy usually isn't after her father's left brain
Yeah.
dead. You know, that's
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
like it's not like a chuckle fest. Right.
Yeah.
So one of the things you need to do is start with you start again with the cross country journey. A woman and her friend take a cross country journey. Okay, to find her mother, so she can who has the power of attorney. And brain dead is a terrible thing to put into a log line. Think of something different.
Yeah.
And remove him from life support.
Why is brain dead so bad?
Because it's going to call up memories from people. And the minute you call up a personal memory from somebody who's reading it that's bad, they will put it down.
Okay.
That's true. And people have this idea that if there's something funny happens in their drama, they got to call it a dramedy or a drama comedy. That's not true. You can have funny things happen in a drama. You know, that's another.
I mean,
trap.
if it's, I'm glad she didn't use the word zany when traveling across the country, but yeah, there's not a lot of comedy there. So that shows. Now, if there's something funny in their trip, or there's something funny about what happens while they're traveling to find the mother, then that needs to be in there.
And it's a road trip movie.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's a road trip movie. You need to start with the fact that they're on a road trip.
Yeah. Okay.
I love the title.
We got Hippopotamus for Christmas follows the story of younger singer Gayla Peavy, whose unexpected Christmas hit single sparks a feel-good movement in her small hometown. But as her newfound fame propels her career, Gayla must decide where she finds her greatest joy and purpose. Back home, surrounded by the unconditional love and creative freedom of her family and community, or amidst the constrained world of manufactured stardom being pushed upon her.
That's a lot of words.
Where's the hippopotamus?
Yeah, the hippopotamus. They have it, hippopotamus.
Is that the song?
There is a song called Hippopotamus for Christmas, and it might be, again, this might be another true story.
Yeah, it might be. And the hippopotamus is what I wanted. After that, I was lost.
Yeah,
there was nothing about a hippopotamus.
Unless it's a true story, you don't need a name in there.
Okay.
Okay, it would be a young singer whose unexpected Christmas hit single sparks a feel-good movement. Why if it's a huge hit, it doesn't spark a feel-good movement just in her hometown.
Right.
So you can leave those words off probably. And her newfound fame propels her career. She must decide where her greatest joy and purpose finds her greatest joy and
Yeah, does she want to be famous or not? I mean, I would just put in there something about that she's faced with struggling about fame.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Does she want to embrace? Does she want to embrace the love of her hometown and what she had before, or does she want to embrace all the problems that fame brings? And that's a whole lot less words.
And then I want to know like what her flaw is that makes her afraid of fame, or that keeps or not. You know, that fame is something that is more exciting to her.
Yeah.
Yeah, I want to know. I want to know more about her as a person.
So let's say this is based on a true story. You said that if it is, it's not crazy to put the title of the film in it. Or are you saying if that's
The person's name. Yeah, but again, if
Gayla, well, you put down it's a
I'm
true
sorry.
story.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. Not
Yeah.
Hippopotamus for Christmas, but Gayla Peavy.
Okay, so if it's a true story,
Yes.
here's how you lead it off. Gayla Peavy, based on a true story, Gayla Peavy, who wrote the song Hippopotamus for Christmas.
Yep.
A hit single that sparked a feel-good movement, and then go from there about whether she wanted fame or didn't want fame. And then you have to also say what she chose.
Yeah.
If it's true.
Yeah, true. I mean, it's
And she ended up on the stage at the Grand Ole Opry, or decided to go live in her hometown with her boyfriend Owen.
changed her name.
You know.
Dyed her hair. went into hiding.
Yeah. We got a teen comedy. A group of thieves led by a first responder fakes an outbreak so they can loot an entire town, and the only ones who can stop them are a group of teenage stoners who didn't evacuate.
Okay, after what we went through with COVID, nobody is going to think that faking a pandemic is funny.
That's true.
And I don't, and I know, I think that it's a good idea for them to come up with something. Might be a gas leak, or it might be
A zombie apocalypse.
something that they can come up with that's interesting. But a pandemic, it would be an instant pass right now.
Probably for the next 20 years.
Yeah.
Okay. But I guess taking that out of it, let's say they do move it to something like a gas leak or something like that.
Well, then the only ones that can stop them are a group of teenage stoners who didn't evacuate. I like it. The only thing that just made me completely stop was an outbreak, because that's it. You know, you hear the word sometimes when somebody says something and nobody laughs, and then they go, "Too soon."
Yeah.
This is too soon.
Right.
Interesting.
Okay.
Okay.
But the idea is good. The reason for emptying the town needs to be massaged.
Okay. We've got an action thriller. After his journalist wife is murdered, a veteran turns to an underground vigilante organization to find the killers and get revenge.
I want to know why he goes to an underground vigilante organization. That's like at first. Maybe I would want something in there.
Why was his wife murdered? That's the
Yeah.
first thing.
Yeah.
Okay, after his wife is murdered because she witnessed something, or knows something, or was in witness protection, or something. Why was the wife murdered?
And like, was it involving the cops kind of thing? Yeah.
Yeah, and then
Frames cops.
And then why would a veteran not do it himself? Okay, and then who's an underground vigilante organization, and why does it exist? To find killers and get revenge. Here's my problem with this, is this is a Steven Seagal movie from 1980. Okay? It's a good idea because people like revenge movies.
They do.
What makes this one different? Why does this one, if you're going to take an idea like my wife was murdered and now I'm going to get revenge, if you want an executive or somebody else to read that, what have you done to turn that story on its head to make it different and interesting than all the other revenge movies that have come out for the last 30 years? Revenge movies always, they're fun, okay? And they're interesting, and Jason Statham does them every week.
Yeah. True.
Okay? And you have to come up, obviously there's something in there that's the hook.
Right.
They need to lead with the hook.
And lastly, we have a comedy serial. When middling car salesman and former mafia bagman Flaminio sets up an adult, over 40 years old Greco-Roman wrestling club, he confronts friends who are nebbishy, out of shape couch potatoes, power plays to commandeer competition space at the local Muay Thai gym and at the YMCA, and pudgy but spirited weekend wrestlers who are closeted WWF and Lucha Libre enthusiasts, all while fighting his shrewd wife's misgivings and battling to save his on-the-rocks marriage.
I'm worried that it's going to be a 300-page script.
Well, it's not. It's a serial.
Oh, it's a series.
It's a series.
Okay. Gotcha.
Okay.
Yeah, when you're writing a series, we need like a kind of overview series logline, not necessarily an episode logline with every single thing that happens during the series. That's like your theme.
What is the series, and what makes you think that it can last more than 3 episodes? What is the hook on it that says this is something that people are going to come back to episode 19? Okay, this is just a bunch of guys that are out of shape that are going to go wrestle. What's their story? Who are they? If you know what I said earlier, I said that series are about characters,
Right.
and films are about story. This is the kind of log line where you talk about who the characters are and what their challenges are.
Right, absolutely. Flaws, everything for those. If you look at the show Justified, you see Raylan Givens. He has a flaw which they usually don't overcome. In a series, they keep that flaw from the beginning to the last show. And his flaw is the need for justice. And you see how they sell that from the title of the show, Justified, to the characters flaw, which is his need to see justice done. And that stems from his.
And if you've got all these lovely, you don't need to. There doesn't need to be anything about power plays to commandeer competition and all that stuff. We're going to talk about who are these people and what's going to happen and what kind of stories are going to come out of this gym, and what are we going to do about who are these people and what makes you want to come back to see them episode after episode.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's a sports comedy. It's what it sounds like
Yeah.
to me. I mean, it sounds like a sports comedy film, like Dodgeball. So it's going to be difficult to carry that out for a comedy series, but not impossible.
And what's interesting is that you can look at other series that have this same kind of ideas and look at their log lines, and you can take the things you like from those log lines. There was that great series on, I can't remember which streaming series it was, but it was about the female wrestlers.
Glow?
Glow.
Yeah.
And look at that and how they did the log line for that. And it doesn't have to be female, it can be a bunch of over 40 out of shape guys.
Yeah. Actually, on that point, so would you just go to the streaming service and look at, like, if I mouse over it, like how it describes it to me, would you call that the log line, or is there a place that you can go look up a log line?
You can actually, there's a lot of things that are online.
Yeah.
You can look up a lot of people's show Bibles. A lot of times they have put them and published them online. You just have to, do a search and find them.
Yeah.
And the log line will be in there.
Yeah.
But you can look also at different things, or you can, find whoever produced it and send them an email and say, what was the log line for Glow? What was your log line for Glow? And they may send it back to you.
Yeah. Get the right
Never hurts to
person.
ask.
No.
No, not at all.
All right. Well, I think that's all the log lines that we have. So thank you
All
guys
right.
for.
I got to go like this because there were no ones that we looked at each other and said, "Uh-oh."
Yeah. I've read 4 of those this week.
And I look at them and get them all the time.
Yeah.
And so good for you.
Yeah, they were all unique.
The Tennessee Screenwriting Association is working very hard with their writers to get them to come up with some really good ideas.
Yeah.
And it's just honing the log line, and which is very difficult. And again, just remember.
Yeah, I know one writer that's great at writing log lines. We all hate him.
Yeah.
Yes, but can he write a good script?
Yeah. I'm not sure. I'm not sure I've ever read any of his scripts.
The log line is meant for one purpose only, to get them to read the script. There's no other purpose for it.
And we're out of time, but I want to thank you both for taking time out of your busy schedules to help our fellow storytellers. You both have a standing invitation to come back and visit us anytime.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Page to Screen is sponsored by the Tennessee Screenwriting Association. To find out more about the TSA, including our meeting schedule, or to become a member, visit us online at www.tenscreen.com. For the most up-to-date info on Page to Screen air dates and guests, check us out on Facebook and on Instagram. And you can check out our archive of past episodes on our YouTube channel. I'm Michael Bentley. Thanks for watching Page to Screen, and remember, keep on writing and keep on learning.
And one little trick I don't know if it's a trick, but one thing I always do when I'm writing is I'll be writing, I know it's kind of coming to an end, and I know I'm finishing the scene, or I have a great line of dialogue that I'm going to finish with. I never write that day. I save it in my head. I make sure I remember it, but I leave those lines, those great lines that are closing a scene, or great lines of dialogue. I leave that so when I open it up the next morning and have coffee, then I can write like, and she entered the room with a gun, and it was like, oh my God, that's so good. I could have written that, but if I'd written that yesterday, I might be like, I don't know what to write now, but it gets me going. So
Yeah.
I always save that little tidbit from the day before to put in the next day first.